Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic part 4. Which is What If Naruto Inherited Minato and Kushina's Ultimate Powers part 4. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Naruto looked at the scroll after he'd just finished reading it, he then looked at the katana hilt in his hand. I have an idea, he said before walking out of the room and Tenten followed. Naruto, what did it say? Tenten asked following him. You'll see. Oba-san, he called through the house activating his Shintengen. Who are you calling to? Tenten asked. The old lady who lived here before us, well her ghost anyway. Naruto-kun. Tenten started, but they walked into the living room where Sakura and Ino were sitting on the couch. You trying to find that ghost lady? Ino asked chuckling. Yeah, I would ask if you've seen her, but you can't see her, Naruto said going out the back. You baka. Did you forget we're at Chizuna's in the land of the waves or something? She's at our house in Konoha, Sakura said. Naruto blushed. The girls giggled. Oops. Well regardless I need to find a spirit, he said walking into the backyard through the door, seeing Hinata and Tamari sparring. Hinata thrust her palm at Tamari who brought her fan up and blocked it before stepping to the side letting Hinata stumble forward a little. Hinata whirled around and thrust at Tamari's head and she ducked down before ramming Hinata in the gut with her fan. Hinata closed one eye and dropped to her knees. Darn, that one hurt, she said. Sorry, Tamari said holding her hand out to help her up. Arigato, Hinata said taking her hand and raising up. Seriously, they heard and they turned to see Naruto running to the side and he stopped. I never thought I'd see your spirit, Naruto said. The spirit in front of him looked at him with shock. It was none other than Zabuza. His spirit was a black aura. How the hell can you see me? He asked. Naruto pointed to his eyes. Kekkei Genkei, he said. HMPH. The reason I'm stuck in this situation. Zabuza said crossing his arms. If I could I'd kick the crap out of you. Yeah, but you're about the best person I could have found, Naruto said. And that would be why? Zabuza asked. Naruto held out the katana's hilt to him. A broken katana. Zabuza looked at him like an idiot. Naruto, who are you talking to? Sakura asked walking up to his side. Zabuza. Zabuza. Sakura yelled. That monstrous blade-wielding psycho. Zabuza's eye twitched. You too, bitch. Hey, I need his help. I'm lucky he was so close, just on the outside of Chizuna's property walking, Naruto said. Okay kid, you show me a broken katana and expect me to help you, what the hell do you want me to do? Zabuza asked. The Shintengen scroll reads that your spirit is your chakra, more like your chakra is a byproduct of your spiritual energy, Naruto said. And, your point? Zabuza asked with a bored and irritated voice. I want you to focus your spiritual energy in the hilt of this sword for me. Naruto said. Zabuza looked at him. Okay, I guess. He shrugged and held his hand over the blade slot in the hilt of the sword and focused his spiritual energy the same as he would for chakra into the hole. A lot. Naruto said. Fine. You want a lot. Here, Zabuza said before releasing a huge burst of his chakra. Sakura and the other girls only saw a swirling energy in front of Naruto as he held the katana hilt out, and Naruto's blue chakra seeped from his hands and covered the handle, finding its way into the hole, and just then a green katana blade of light extended out and crackled with a bit of electricity. Bingo. Zabuza's eyes widened. You're kidding, a sword of light. No. A sword of chakra and life force, meant specifically for killing the blood angel. I don't believe it. The angel reaver found its way into your hands. Zabuza said shaking his head and chuckling. You know about it? He asked. Of course I do. The 7 shinobi swordsmen of Mist all know about it, though, not many of them believes it existed. That sword was crafted by Hattori Hanzo. The first shinobi and the greatest swordsmith ever. It was his final work before he was killed. It's said that he made for a man to bring an end to a mighty demon's wrath, Zabuza explained. That's what it said in this scroll, that demon's the blood angel, maybe my family obtained it somewhere along the lines after that. Naruto said. Probably. Is that all? Zabuza asked. Yeah. One question. You know Hoshigaki Kisame, right? Naruto asked. Fish paste. What about him? He asked. Any idea where him and Akatsuki might be? Akatsuki. Those bastards Well, I did encounter him and his body one time before I fought you guys. Itachi. Uchiha. Right. I only talked to them for a minute, but they were heading for a mountain on the mainland to the east. Zabuza said. That may help. Thanks, Naruto said. I'm going now, Zabuza said, turning and walking away. Cool. I got a sword and figured out a possible hiding place of Akatsuki, Naruto said. Naruto, that sword's insane. What did Zabuza tell you? Sakura asked. Yeah, fill us in, Tamari said. Well, let's see, where to start? Naruto said. What? Hiashi yelled, slamming his fist onto the table, looking at the other council members. Hiashi, calm yourself immediately, one of the council barked at him. I can't believe this, even the council is taking the side of that demon brat. Since when did you want him to have anything good? Hiashi said. We're not taking any side but the villages. This marriage is for the better of not only Naruto's 2 clans but your own as well. Because of it, the next generation of 3 clans is around the corner. Even if you are the head of the Hyuga house, you can't overthrow this vote by the council, an elderly female said. Your daughter doesn't seem to have objections. Tsunade said, walking into the conference room. Let her make her own decisions for once. Quite frankly, she'd run the Hyugas better than you, she said, taking her seat at the front of the table. Sorry I'm late, I had a message to send. Tsunade, you don't deserve the title of Hokage, Hiashi said. You're lazy, you're not strict enough, and you're one to talk. You're the one person who has objections to their marriage, Tsunade said. If a father can't be happy for her daughter regardless of who it's with, they don't deserve to have a rank such as clan head, and here's a shot in the face for you. I'm not gonna stay the Hokage for much longer, and guess who I'm looking to be my replacement, she grinned evilly. Hiashi narrowed his eye. Who? He growled. None other than the boy you hate so very much, she smiled in a way that was just meant to piss him off. Nani? Hiashi barked. You're thinking of letting him be your successor? A council member asked. Yes, Tsunade said. He's more than capable, given the time. You must be joking. Hiashi barked. Control yourself, Hiashi, a council member said. It's immoral to have so many wives, it makes my daughter look like and that reflects on me, Hiashi said. Stop thinking about yourself and think about your clan, your daughter and this village, Tsunade said. HMPH. Hiashi scoffed as he walked out of the room. Halfway down the hall he slammed his fist onto the wall. Let that little demon child be the Hokage. And the head of my house with Hinata. I'll die before that, he growled to himself. Daemon walked through a part of some of a forest near the Cloud Village and he came to a field that emitted the sweet scent after a rain. When the rain stops, the cloud country is really nice. He looked around and enjoyed the warm sun and view. Then out of nowhere a hummingbird came zipping in at him out of sight, but without looking he grabbed the bird in midair, stopping it as its long beak wobbled. He glared a look of death at the small animal, one eye wider open than the other. Not this time, he snapped before throwing the bird to the ground and stomped on it 3 times before blasting a red lightning bolt at it. There, that's what you get, he said. Just then he felt a slight breeze and a noise. The breeze is nice but the noise is, he said, turning around only to see a giant flock of various birds flying in at him like bullets. Why? Daemon said. Just before the flock flew past him with enough force to send him flying with them, and he flailed and screamed trying to get free. You birds, I'll kill you all. It was nighttime and Naruto sat on the porch of the backyard looking at the night sky. He then looked down at the Angel Reaver. As he rubbed his thumb against the dark blue fabric that wrapped around the hilt, this was made to put an end to the Blood Angel. Too bad he had a kid, he said to himself. The door slid open and Tamari walked out and sat next to him. Hey, what you doing? She asked. Just thinking about how I might be able to use this against the Blood Angel. Naruto said. I don't think any weapon's gonna help unless you know how to use it, and last time I checked you didn't use a sword. Tamari said. I know, but if this can actually hurt the guy then I need to work with it, Naruto said, holding the hilt out and looking at it in the light of the moon. Well, if you wanna fight him again, don't do it alone, let us help you. Tamari said, wrapping her arms around his and leaning against him. Wives are supposed to help their husbands, right? She said. Naruto chuckled. Yeah, I guess that's true, but I don't want you all to get hurt, he said. And you think we want you to get hurt? Temari asked. Thanks. It's nice to be loved, he said, smiling. Temari blushed. Hey, don't get mushy on me now. I'm not good with romance. Naruto chuckled before grabbing her chin and turning her head to him. You're good enough, he said before kissing her. Temari broke the kiss. Hey, would you mind if me and you slept in a different room tonight? Just the two of us, she asked. Sure. I don't see why not. Naruto said. It's kind of late already. Let's go in, he said, and she nodded before they both rose up and walked inside. Sakura and Hinata were sitting in the living room drinking some tea as Tazuna downed the last of his beer. Alright, I'm going to bed, he said, tossing his bottle into the trash. Gotta get up early tomorrow to work on my bridge, he said, going upstairs. Night, they said. Hey Naruto, let's go to bed, Sakura said. Sorry Sakura-chan, promised Temari I'd spend the night with her in another room, he said. Oh, alright, well I guess I'll see you tomorrow, Sakura said, standing and walking over to him to place a kiss on his lips before going upstairs. Hinata stood up too and went up to him. Good night, she said, kissing him before going upstairs. You too, he said. Night ladies, Temari said. Guess everyone is in bed, think we should hit the hay? She asked. Yeah. With that they made their way upstairs and Temari tugged him along to the end of the hall and to the right, through the door into the room. I thought this would be a good room, she said. Any works right, Naruto said. Yep. Now stay here. I'm going to go change, she winked and walked out. Naruto pulled off his jacket and tossed it onto the dresser, leaving only his white undershirt on, and he took off his pant and laid down in the bed. Shortly after, Temari walked in wearing her pinkish-purple silk nightgown with spaghetti straps. A clothing that left little to the imagination as it just barely hung over her and butt. Naruto chuckled. Why as ever, he said. She blushed slightly. Thanks, she said, turning to the mirror, and she pulled out her ponytails, letting her hair fall loose and free before laying in bed next to Naruto. You know, you look a lot more beautiful with your hair down, Naruto said, and she smiled. You think? She asked, pulling a few strands of hair up and looking at them. Yeah, he said before kissing her. Temari turned to her other side and scooted her back into Naruto's chest. He wrapped an arm around her side and slid his other arm under the pillows below her head. The kunoichi put her hand on his and rubbed it with her thumb. One of the very rare times she felt truly content. There's only one thing that could make it better. She decided and grabbed the hand he had draped over her and put it over her. Naruto lifted his head from the pillow and looked over her shoulder. Temari. Rub it, please, Temari said. Naruto smiled and laid his head back on the pillow before he began to slowly and rhythmically squeeze, rub and knead her soft. Temari's face turned a bit red and she moaned quietly, enjoying the motions. After a minute or two of then Temari grabbed his hand and pulled it off. Okay, you can stop, she said. Are you sure? He asked. Trust me, there's nothing more I want to do than make love to you right now, but I don't think you or me wants it to be all about, Temari said. It's never about just the, Naruto said. I do it for you and the others if you want it. Temari smiled. You're so sweet, she said. How about this? Do you want a full body mage? He asked her. Sure, she said. That sounds nice, she said before sitting up and pulling her nightgown over her head and tossing it to the ground. Temari then laid back again. Well, mage away lover boy, she giggled. He sat up and got on his knees before he began to mage her shoulders, going down her arms, squeezing and rolling her skin, instantly relaxing her. He brought his hands to her stomach and lower rib cage where he began rubbing circle. These are good for you, you know. Gets the blood flowing. You get my blood flowing without even touching me, Temari chuckled. It feels really nice, she smiled. Thanks. He went down to her hips and began maging all around her legs, going down them. It was then that Naruto finally realized just how strong and toned her legs were, nothing to define but just on the Y scale. He moved to her other leg and repeated the process before rubbing his hand up her stomach, and he grabbed one of her S in both hands, gently kneading it as he maged the soft mound of flesh. Tamari closed her eyes and relaxed as he went on to her other, doing the same to it, cupping his hands around the mounds and rubbing around them. Tamari could feel her body reacting to his strong and yet gentle touch. Naruto slid his hand down to just above her and just below her stomach and began rubbing side to side, hip to hip. He's so close to it, it's driving me insane, Tamari thought. Naruto saw her and he saw her tighten it and she unconsciously pumped her hips once, slightly. Naruto just ran his hand over her, rubbing it as he did so, and Tamari let out a slight gasp of pleasure. Are you sure you don't want me to? You're really wet, Naruto said. No, I'm not sure. She shook her head. You're making me feel like never before. A mage has never done that to me. Naruto sighed and chuckled before he straightened out his index and pink fingers, and sliding his ring and middle fingers into her tight and curving them up once they were in her. Naruto put his hand on her hips to hold her down and remembered what Jiraiya said was the way to give the greatest orgasm a woman could feel, though granted he was missing oil, but Naruto didn't care and he doubted Tamari did. He then began pull his arm up and down fast and hard, but not painfully hard. Ah! Tamari arched her back at the sudden burst of pleasure and threw her head back as she grabbed the covers tightly in her hands, and Naruto. Holy shit, I just started and she acting like this. Granted, I've never seen this done before, only heard the way to do it in words. I guess Jiraiya actually taught me something I could use, he laughed inwardly, and he picked up his speed as she spread her legs wide. Oh my god. Ah yes. Naruto. Naruto. Moto, she said, I haven't even come yet and I feel better than I ever have before. Naruto pulled his fingers out sensing she was about to come and he let her calm down a bit, just like Jiraiya said, and then he slid his fingers back in and continued, pulling up and down, fingering her. Tamari's legs began to straighten a little and her toes curled tightly, her back still arched. Naruto would rub her clit with his other hand, but the way he was fingering her from the side, the palm of his hand was maging against her clit already as he fingered her. Naruto, Tamari moaned and he pulled out just as she came and cum squirted a little and her body pulsed with the orgasm, her legs going straight, her back arching and unarching. Did you like that? Naruto asked. My god, Naruto, that was the greatest thing I've ever felt, she panted. He smirked. I'm not done yet, he said before going down and licking her clit. Ah, Naruto, you're so good at this, she gasped. He fluttered her clit with his tongue. Well, let's say I've had practice, he said before sliding his fingers in the same way as before and continuing. It's not in the finger motion, but the hand and arm motion, he thought before pouring chakra from his fingers into her. This wasn't in the description of doing this, but yeah, any sensible ninja would think to do the same, no. Chakra can be used for more than healing and fighting, besides it makes up for no oil. He kept going, increasing his speed almost till he was picking her hips up every time, cum poured out of her in large amounts. Her body was beginning to shake and she bit her lower, throwing her head back and curling her toes. She clenched her hands into fists. She was starting to lose voluntary control of her body. This was so good. Naruto. Oh my god, Tamari moaned, I can't see control myself. That's supposed to happen, Naruto said, and he pulled out just as cum shot out and soaked the bed again, and Tamari let out a long moan as her body began react totally alone to the feeling as she continued to have orgasm after orgasm. It was a full body orgasm and she had no control over her flailing. Naruto held her leg down and put a hand on her shoulder and waited as she went through at least 10 more orgasms, when she finally regained control of herself. My god, I didn't think it would be that bad. I'm so sorry, Tamari, Naruto said. Bad? Tamari asked, grabbing his head and pulling him into a deep kiss as she slid her tongue in and rolled him over, getting on top of him and breaking the kiss. That was beyond the bliss of heaven, Naruto. She said, grabbing the collar of his shirt and ripping it up and over his head, pulling it off of him. She began to kiss all over his chest and stomach, feeling his muscles. The only problem is I don't know a way to make you feel like that, she said, going down to his boxers, which she pulled his erection out of and licked up its length. Ah, Naruto moaned, I don't care about getting anything in return, he said. And that's why you're special, she said before taking his entire into her mouth, and she began focusing every movement her tongue could make on the top most sensitive part, as she bobbed up and down and stroked his balls. Naruto moaned and closed his eyes as he grabbed her long blonde hair and ran his fingers through it. Tamari began to pick up speed and she pulled off and licked the top several times before taking it all the way back in and continuing to on it. Tamari took the length of his and put it between her s, which were the perfect size for this, and began to him as she ed the top of his. They're so soft, Naruto moaned. Tamari rubbed her tongue up and down his still with it between her s. I'm about to come, he said, and took it deep in her mouth and let him release his load inside, and she drank it down. She pulled off him and climbed on top of him, grabbing his and sliding it in her as she lowered herself, both of them letting out a moan. Tamari braced herself before she began to bounce up and down, riding his manhood in and out of herself, and he grabbed her hips and began pumping. She leaned over and kissed him pianely, diving her tongue into his mouth to play with his. His went in as deep as it could go, and when he pulled out, her tight gripped around it. Her hips rolled and bounced up and down him as he pumped in rhythm with her. She finally broke the kiss and began ing on his neck, and he did the same to her, their moans drifting through the room. She pulled off of him and turned around and got on all fours. Come and get me, lover boy, she said idly. He sat up and grabbed her hips before pushing his into her, and he began pumping as he reached around and began rubbing her clit and groping her. Tamari moaned with each of his pumps, her hair and loose bouncing forward with each of his thrusts in and out of her heated. Naruto pulled her back and laid on his back with her back in his chest, and he continued pumping in and out of her as she spread her legs to the sides. He switched S to rub and kept rubbing her clit, pumping in and out of her. I'm so close to coming again, Tamari moaned. Me too, Naruto said. Don't pull out, keep going, she said. He continued to pump as he came blasting inside her, and seconds later her tightened around him and she came again. Tamari rolled off into the side before cuddling up against him, resting her head on his chest. That was, beyond words, thank you, Naruto. I love you, she said. You're welcome. I love you too, he said, and they kissed one last time, and Tamari laid her head on his chest and was asleep instantly. Usually it's the guys that pee out first, Naruto inwardly chuckled. He then heard some kind of sniffling and crying, but it was in his head. Kyuubi, are you crying? He thought. I'm just so proud, you've finally learned the female anatomy completely, Kyuubi cried, brushing tears out of his eyes with his hand. Oh, and on another note, when I finish this story I'm doing a Yuri story, and if you'd be so kind as to go to my profile and answer the poll question, it would help greatly. Arigato, Mrs. Roboto. It was getting dark and back at Konoha. Tsunade walked into the hospital room Neji was in with a clipboard, and he was standing next to the window looking outside. Well, we found out that what attacked you and your team was a demon-human hybrid from about 1,000 years ago, called the Blood Angel, Tsunade said. It would seem appropriate, Neji said coldly. Don't worry, we'll get that bastard, Tsunade said. HMPH. I know we will, because I'm going to help do it, Neji said, cinching his fist. Well, you're free to leave the hospital now. Think you're up for a mission? Tsunade asked, raising an eyebrow, in a voice meant to pique his interest. Of course. What is it? He asked. It'll be an S-rank mission. I'll leave you in charge of it. I want you to form a group of as many shinobi you can trust your life to. Here's a list of who's available for duty, Tsunade said, handing him the clipboard. He looked it over and flipped to the second page. How many can I take? He asked. 5 to 7. Konkuro is on his way here to help out, was her answer. Report back to me when you've found them. Okay, he said before turning and grabbing his normal clothes and going into the bathroom to change. Tsunade looked out the window at the sky. Just you wait. Daemon, she said. Tenten looked at the night sky and the few clouds that loomed overhead as she walked through the land of wave. She'd been walking for a few hours throughout the village and the surrounding forest, and she walked up to a small cliff that was about 15 maybe 18 feet high, and she looked down, seeing a hot spring of steaming water. A hot spring, out here. Must have popped up recently, Tenten said before looking around. She then walked along the edge of the cliff towards the bottom where she could dip her finger into the water. That's nice and hot, she said before looking around once more. No one will see me, she said, and she stripped her clothes off, down to her bare skin and slender form. She dipped her foot into the water and slowly lowered herself into the hot liquid. Ooh, hot, 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 she said, going farther down until her s were just below the surface, and she swam over to the sheer cliff she once stood and leaned her back against the rock. Ah, she sighed in relief, letting the heat consume her body, her tired feet soothed in seconds. She took out her hair ties and let her hair free, before she took in a deep breath and dipped her head under the water before pulling it out. She looked at the water and noticed a shadow and a person's reflection in moving over the water, and she looked up to see Naruto and jumping off the edge of the cliff, cannonball. He yelled, rolling into a ball and splashing into the water feet in front of Tenten, who rose to her feet. What the? She said. Ooh, hot. Naruto jumped up out of the water, before landing back down. Damn, didn't expect it to be that hot, he said, turning around and seeing a bare Tenten. Naruto then realized when he jumped her moved to a more shallow end of the water and him manhood was in plain view. Both teens blushed and Tenten shrieked before dipping her body deep in the water. Naruto kind of sank himself down into the deeper end. Sorry, miss, he said. Miss? She asked. It's me, Naruto, Tenten said. Tenten. Holy crap, you look different with her hair down, he said, blushing. Now he felt like an idiot. Everyone says that, she said, still blushing like mad. I'm sorry, he said. It's okay. What are you doing here? She asked. Well, I came to relax in my hot spring, he said. Your hot spring? Tenten asked. Yeah, earlier today I used my Uzumaki Keke Genkai to bring up a spring of hot water. I was hoping to keep it as my own personal getaway place. Naruto said. Sorry. I kind of stumbled across it a few minutes ago and it seemed like a nice idea to get in, Tenten said. That's fine. I don't mind sharing it, he said. We'll keep it between the two of us, Tenten winked, and they both chuckled a little. Works for me, Naruto said. I hope me being here hasn't made you uncomfortable, Naruto said. No. It's fine. I've just never actually seen a guy before, she said, blushing. Well, I hadn't seen a girl in person anyways until recently myself, Naruto chuckled, sticking his tongue out. Why, you've made love to the others, right? Tenten asked. Why, yeah, Naruto blushed. Why, do you really love them? She asked. Of course. I only have with them if they want it though. I know, it's just, we haven't spent much time together, me and you, she said. Well, we're here now, what do you want to talk about? Naruto asked. If you want, why, you can come sit next to me, she said, looking down at the water and blushing as she poked her fingers together under the surface. Okay, Naruto said, and he swam over to her right and sat in the shallow water, leaning against the cliff wall. Tell me more about yourself, Tenten said. Well, first things first, I love ramen, but you know that. I like training and can't get enough of the fact that I have a Keke Genkai, let alone two. I'm going to become Hokage someday and protect the village, showing everyone I'm not a loser, and that's all off the top of my head, he chuckled. What about you? Okay, let's see. Of course, I love practicing my weapon skills. I enjoy missions when they're really tough. I can't resist eating dango whenever I pee the shop. I used to have a crush on Neji and kind of still do. My family was killed in the Kyuubi attack. My favorite color is red and I need contact with other people or I'll shrivel up and die, she said quickly before panting. What's your goal in life? Naruto said. I want to kiss you, she said unconsciously. I mean, I want to be a legendary kunoichi, she said. How the hell did I say a kiss is my number one desire all of sudden? I've always wanted to be a legendary kunoichi, she thought. I'm pretty sure I heard you say kiss. Naruto chuckled. Tenten blushed. I did, but I did it unconsciously, she said. Well, your unconscious is what you really want, Naruto said before laughing. Do you want to kiss? She asked. If you want to, he said, scratching the back of his head. Tenten leaned over and Naruto turned to her and their lips met, and she closed her eyes, as Naruto rose his hand to put it on her cheek. They pulled apart and Tenten opened her eyes and smiled. That was pretty nice, she said. Hey, I'll tell you what, I think I'm destined to have received both my Keke Genkai so I could stop this Blood Angel guy, so I promise I'll get him back for what he did to Lee and Guy, he said. She turned her head and looked down. Though they really annoyed me, they were my team. I can't help but feel like I could have stopped them from dying if I was there, she said, tears starting to building her eyes. No. That guy was too strong. We're lucky Neji made it out alive, Naruto said. Not even Kyuubi's help could stop him. He said remember the last fight he had with Daemon. Flashback. Daemon kneed Naruto in the gut and sent him into the air before flying up after him. The Blood Angel reared his fist back and threw it at Naruto, only to have it knocked away, and they began another quick flurry of attacks. Mahehehe. That's right boy, fight harder. Daemon said, picking up his pace, forcing Naruto to do the same. Fight for your life. Daemon said, exhilarated, getting faster with his attacks yet again. Naruto was starting to struggle to keep up. Fight for your world. Daemon yelled, getting faster still. Fight for you species and die in a heroic blaze of glory. Daemon yelled, slamming a punch into Naruto's face, sending him flying to the water below, like so many before you. Daemon roared before dashing straight down after him. Naruto slammed into the water with a huge splash, and seconds after Daemon broke through the still open hole, Naruto made and straightened the fingers on his right hand and piercing his arm through Naruto's stomach like a sword. Naruto coughed and hacked up blood that filed the water around them, as more blood poured from the new hole in his stomach. End flashback. Well, we should get out, Tenten said, standing up with a blush and walking towards the ground where her clothes were. You don't mind walking in front of me? Naruto asked, looking away, trying to be respectful, but his inner perv, damn you Jiraiya, forced him to sneak a few peeks. No, I guess not. At last you won't gawk like most guys, she said, getting on land, and she started getting dressed, her wet body soaking her clothes somewhat. Naruto jumped out of the water and ran up the side of the cliff, and Tenten watched as he ran over the top. He reached down and picked up his clothes and towel, which he threw to Tenten. Dry off before you put your clothes on, he chuckled. Luckily all she had on so far was her underwear, which she left on as she ran the towel over herself, drying her skin enough. She then threw the towel back up to Naruto, who used it to dry off and then got dressed. They walked back towards Tazuna's house, and Tenten s her hand into Naruto's, intertwining their fingers. The next day, at about 11 in the morning, Naruto was out back sparring with Hinata, something he promised to do with her. Ino and Temari were out with Tsunami shopping for food, and Sakura sat in the living lounging on the couch. Tenten walked out of the bathroom after a bath and sat next to Sakura on the couch. Hey Sakura, can I ask you something? Tenten asked. Huh? Sakura turned to her. I'm curious about Naruto, she said. What about our lovable idiot? She asked. I think I wanna try a relationship with him, but I need ways to cant his attention, something he'd like. Tenten said. Sakura looked at her. Well, one thing, he's too stupid to get hints, so you have to make the move yourself, trying treating him to ramen or ask to cuddle him, or if you feel daring enough you can strip down and him, he won't resist. Trust me, she said. Well, I'm not going to him yet. Any other suggestions? She asked. Train with him. Sakura shrugged. There's not too many ways I can think of. Go on a date with him. HHHMM. You can be why. Best way to get to a guy is through his hormones, Sakura said. Isn't supposed to be through his stomach. Nope. Trust me. Hormones, Sakura said. All guys are horny little bastards when you get down to the nitty-gritty, no matter how respectful or gentlemanlike they try to be. Even if it's not something they care to try and get, they'll all take it when it comes to them. I guess I'll go give it a shot. I'll be back a little later. Tenten said, getting up and walking to the door, slipping her shoes on and exiting the house. Yane. Sakura waved. Later that day, Tenten was walking back into the house carrying a brown paper bag, and she kicked off her shoes. She walked up the stairs and saw Temari, Ino, and Sakura in the living room. I'm back, she called. Hey. Temari greeted. Tenten waked up into their room and it was empty, so she walked in and put the bag down before digging in it. Naruto was out back as Inari threw attack after attack at him in a spar, and Naruto spun around and backhanded him in the face, knocking him off balance and fell to his face on the ground. You gotta think more with your attacks, trust me. I know, Naruto said. Right, but let's stop for now, Inari said. Thanks for sparring with me though, he bowed. No problem, Naruto said. So Naruto-sensei, when do you think I could go to Konoha? He asked. Sensei. Well, whenever we head back, he shrugged. Okay, Inari said before walking towards the door to go inside. Naruto was behind him. Just as Inari opened the door, Tenten was on the other side doing the same. Oh, here. Tenten said, stepping to the side and letting Inari in. Thanks, he said. Hey Tenten, Naruto greeted, just before Tenten grabbed him and pulled him out back again, closing the door. Come on, let's go on a date, she said. Okay, Naruto said. You seem rather happy for your situation, are you just trying to be happy? He said. Well, Lee and Guy are dead, but I know they'd probably give me shit about wasting my youth crying over them, she said, he voice quiet. When Naruto got to her side, he saw that she was crying. Hey, it's okay. I'll find their souls one day and you can talk to them through me, huh? What do ya say? He said, wiping a tear that fell from her eye. Thank you, she said, but so long as I drive a kunai into that bastard's neck, there's no way I'll be at a real peace with myself, Tenten said. Honestly, every night I've dreamt about the many possible ways they could have died. Just try to not think about, he said. Okay, let's try to have fun, she smiled, drying her eyes with her forearm. They found their way to a ramen shop and Naruto ordered them each a large bowl, and before long they were chowing down on the ramen. Tenten, can you tell me about your family? Naruto said. Well, like I said, I don't have any family, they all died in Kyuubi's attack, it's one of the reasons I need contact with people. I've been living with a foster mom since I was 8, Tenten said. Wow, that's a lot like me, Naruto said. I was alone all my childhood, constantly getting picked on and beaten up for no reason, but then I found out about Kyuubi being sealed in me. All my life I've been practically alone, except for when I was in the academy. I made a lot of friends there, but it hurts not knowing her family. I plead insanity, Kyuubi blurted in Naruto's head. Huh, Naruto thought. I swear to God, it wasn't my fault, Kyuubi said. How is it not? Naruto asked. I wasn't under my own control at the time, it was that bastard Uchiha Madara, somehow he can control the Biju, Kyuubi answered. I remember you saying that name when Sasuke entered my mind and saw you. He was the one who created the Uchiha clan and developed the Sharingan. Yeah, Kakashi-sensei said something about that at the Valley of the End. There's a statue of Madara and one of the first Hokage, but wouldn't he be dead and or dying by now? Somehow he retained his youth. Kyuubi said. Naruto, you're spacing out on me, Tenten said, waving her hand in front of his face. Oh sorry, Naruto said, shaking his head. Let's eat, he said before pulling in a mouthful of ramen. Right, Tenten said before doing the same. Soon they were finished and left the shop after Naruto paid. Hey Naruto, wanna race? Tenten asked. Sure. Where to? He asked. How about to the hot spring you made? Tenten suggested. Okay. Naruto nodded. Ready. Go. He said, and they both took off like bullets down the road. They were neck and neck as Hay tore around a corner and continued into the forested area where they hopped into trees, jumping from one to another. Eventually they were side by side running along the same path of branches, and Naruto realized she was getting ahead of him, so he kicked it up a notch. Naruto soon had to move closer in towards Tenten because of the trees growing closer together as they went on, but in doing so he bumped Tenten and she slipped on a branch, twisting her ankle, and she grabbed onto another branch, but the awkward angle screwed her up and she ended up yanking her arm hard before she fell towards the ground, and just before she hit, Naruto landed under her and caught her bridle style. Are you okay? He asked. Ouch. Yeah, but I twisted my ankle and strained my right tricep, she said. Well, here, we're almost there. He ate and he carried her the rest of the way to the hot spring, which was only a few minutes away. He sat her down near the edge of the water and she pulled off her shoes, groaning in pain from her twisted ankle, which she dipped into the hot water. Ah, she sighed in relief. You hurt your arm too, right? Naruto asked, sitting down. Yeah. Strained my tricep trying to grab the branch, and also stretched some muscles in my back too. Tenten grunted, rubbing her right side as far towards her back as possible with her left arm. Do you want a mage? He asked. Sure. That sounds nice, she said before pulling her leg out of the water and laying on her stomach along the edge of the water. Naruto knelt down next to her and maged circles on her back, focusing on her right side, applying good amounts of pressure. Tenten grunted. Feel better? He asked. Yes. A little harder please, she said. Okay, Naruto replied, pushing down a little harder as he continued the circles, eventually leading to her right arm, which he maged all around with both hands, loosening her tight tricep muscle. Damn, were you trained to mage people? She grunted. No. Why is it good? He asked. Jin walked into his room and tossed his sheathed sword in the corner before sitting on his bed staring at the wall. Yet another day of training, and not even an inch closer to surping him. He thought to himself before gritting his teeth. Damn you, Zeiken, how do you gain so much power so fast? It's not fair. What makes you so damn special? He said, looking at the back of his right hand, which had a diagonal scar on it, an injury gained from sparring with his elder brother. Jin stood up and walked over to his desk to the right of the room and sat down before opening a rolled-up scroll. He read over it quickly, and when he got to the bottom there was still space. He grabbed a brush and opened an ink bottle before dipping the brush in, and he continued to finish the scroll. This is the one technique that could get me past him. I just have to perfect it, he said to himself. Just then a knock came at the door. Who is it? Jin asked coldly. Me. He heard Zeiken's voice as he opened the door and walked in. To what do I owe the honor of the presence of the great Zeiken? He said dryly with a sarcastic tone, never looking away from his scroll as he continued writing. Zeiken sighed. Why are you always like this? He asked. Because I can. Now can I help you? Jin asked. I just came to show you something. Zeiken said. You know how I've been developing a technique for the last 4 years, right? The one you haven't let anyone see or told anyone about. What about it? Jin asked. I've mastered it finally, Zeiken said. Well, bonsai for you. Do you want a cookie for your efforts? Or are you just here to rub it in my face? Jin snapped. Jin, I'm not trying to be your enemy. You're my little brother. Why is it the only thing you seem to care about is power? Zeiken asked. I told you at the tournament. Power is the most important thing in this shithole world, Jin said. If that's the world you think you live in, I want no part of it. I'd rather have a peaceful world where war and rampaging demons doesn't exist, and if you hate this world so much, I'll use my new technique to change it for the better. Then you won't have fight or feel the need for power. Power always loses to a greater power. Yuing Baka. Of course I will. I'll just want it more if you do something like change the world, Jin thought. Is this technique really all so great? He snapped, turning to his elder brother. If used the right way, Zeiken said before holding his hand over his eyes and lowering them. The room lit up with a blue light, and Jin's eyes widened and his jaw went agape. Daemon's eyes whipped open and he sat up in his bed, in between Tsuruyomi and Kumoyomi. He panted a couple of times, rubbing the cold sweat from his brow. Cursed memories, stop plaguing me, he said silently. The curse of the blood angel is to be tormented by the memories of my father. My children may be the same with my memories, he said, looking at the females in his bed. Just then Kumoyomi opened her eyes. What's wrong, babe? She asked tiredly. The memories again. No need to concern yourself, he said. You sure? She asked. Yes. Go back to sleep. You need your rest for the Iwagakure raid tomorrow, Daemon said. Okay. She said before closing her eyes, and Daemon laid back and put his hands behind his head. Now I have a small army. Rock will fall with even greater ease than cloud. Just then banging was heard at the door. Lord Daemon, it was Narunia, and he opened the door and ran in. What the hell, Narunia? It's the middle of the night. Tsuruyomi snapped, sitting up in bed. Shut it, wench. This is important. When I was going over the dead body count from Cloud like you asked me to, and I found the wreckage is gone. What? Daemon sat up with an infuriated look. What do you mean he's gone? Exactly as it sounds. He's gone, disappeared, vanished, poofed, as in he's not there anymore. Narunia said, doing gestures with his arms for each word. So the bastard lived. I had a feeling I killed him too easily, Daemon said, rubbing his chin. What the hell do we do now? Kumoyomi asked. Nothing. Let him go. No matter what he tries, he won't stop us. Daemon said. The bloodied Reikage walked down a path with his arm around the shoulders of a kunoichi of the cloud. Are you sure you'll be able to make it to Konoha Reikage-sama? She asked. Yes, though it may not seem like it. I've been in worse condition before, he grunted. Do you want to rest? She asked. No. He shook his head. We must keep moving. Why don't we go to Iowa? It's closer, she said. You know very damn well Iowa hates every one of the other countries, great or small. They'd kill me on sight. You may be able to survive it though, Yugito. I'm not going to abandon you. You were the only person in Kumo to not treat me like some lowly creature and or tool, the blonde female said. Being a Jinchuriki is a curse, he said. I still hate the council's decision to make an artificial Biju for the Akatsuki to steal. Though she was only my body double, it's still ed up, Yugito said. I tried to overwrite that, but the council has more collective power than the cage. It's the same for every major village, the Rakage said. Yugito smirked. I bet Akatsuki are still kicking themselves for that, she chuckled. More than likely, he said. Now let me stand on my own. Let's get moving, he said, taking his arm off her shoulder, and she reluctantly let him stand on his own. He took a deep breath. Okay, Yukazu, 1. He said, and they dashed down the path at full speed. Dash dash dash. Naruto and Tenten stood across from each other in the backyard of Tezuna's house, and Tenten pulled out a small scroll and unraveled it before biting her thumb and smearing the blood on one of the 4 seal circles on it, and in a poof of smoke a katana appeared and she grabbed the handle. I prefer a staff when it comes to melee combat, but I know my way around a sword to a fair degree, she said. Thanks. Never used a sword, anything will help, Naruto replied, holding up the Angel Reaver, and held it out before focusing his chakra into it, and his blue chakra creeped up the handle and into the hole for the blade, and soon chakra was swirling out of the hole and the green blade shot out and crackled with electricity a few times. Don't you need a spirit to help you make the blade? Tenten asked. Nope. Not every spirit is just gonna put their chakra into the hilt for me. I only need to do it once in a while. Kind of like a refill. After that, the scroll said I can use it several times before needing another spirit to lend chakra from, he explained. Oh, well, let's get started. Now when you swing a sword you have to take in account its weak hold on a minute. Does that thing even feel heavier with the blade out? She asked. Nope. Only weight is the handles, he said. Okay. Skipping lesson 1. Moving on to the next. Posture. Now there are several sword stances and countless sword styles to go with them. I know only a little of Bushido, and typical Kenjutsu, so you're gonna have to deal with those styles until you can find someone else to teach you more, she explained. That's fine, though I gotta say I'd rather have a sword like Zabuza's, he said, don't know why. What kind did he use? Tenten asked. A really big sword that was at least as big as him, he chuckled, scratching the back of his head. That's a Zweihander style. That's gotta be the hardest to learn because of the weight of the sword. Besides, you don't want a Zweihander. You know what they say about guys with big swords, she said with a smirk. What do they say? He asked. Her jaw dropped and she let her arms limp at her side. It means they're compensating for something else, she said, pointing down. Compensating for what? The ground? Naruto asked, perplexed. Tenten dropped her head. Why am I getting feelings for this idiot? She mumbled under her breath. Tezuna. They heard a man yell and they turned to see a middle-aged man running up to the house, and Tezuna walked out. What's wrong, Akira? He asked. Something didn't happen to the bridge, did it? He's starting wigging out. No, the bridge is still fine. But look at this, he said, holding up a scroll and unrolling, letting Tezuna read its contents. Tezuna's eyes widened. What does Kumo mean they're canceling all trades? The hell is this shit? Read the second half, Akira said. He then read the next part of it. By decree of the new master of the Cloud Daemon, the Blood Angel, all trades are to cease at once. Your items and weapons are no longer needed, he quoted. What did you just say? Naruto ran up to him. The Blood Angel. He has to be the guy that attacked us and destroyed the bridge. Tenten shook her head. You can put 2 and 2 together in that situation, but you can't put 1 and 1 together for the compensation joke. She said to herself. What? Do you intend to go to Kumo? Tezuna said. Idiot. It's way too far from here, not to mention what happened to you last time you fought this Blood Angel guy, he said. I don't care about me. I can't just sit here while a guy worse than the Akatsuki is doing whatever the hell he pleases. Naruto said. We care about you. He heard Sakura and turned around to see her, Hinata, Ino and Tamari. But this guy obviously is willing to kill anyone who he decides to. And if I understand right, he conquered the Cloud Village, killing who knows how many people. I can't let him do this. If not me, someone has to do something, he said. Quite frankly, Sakura was concerned. She already nearly lost him once to the bastard. We do nothing until Tsunade-sama instructs us to do otherwise, she said firmly. But who knows how many deaths there are gonna be, Naruto said, looking down and clenching his fists. Hinata was torn between absolutely loving this side of him that wants to help people, and the fact that she didn't want him hurt. Was she being overly protective? Naruto is one resilient son of a bitch after all, but if it weren't for Sakura, Ino and the Kyuubi's chakra, he'd be dead. You need to value your own life sometimes too though, she said. Well, don't worry babe, we'll get Tay word to move soon enough, then I'll help you kick the snot out of him, Tamari said. Yeah. We won't let you fight alone again, Sakura said. Right. What are men without their wives? Ino said. Lucky, Tazuna said, raising his beer bottle as if to toast before he started drinking from it. Tenten slammed her foot on top of his and the sudden pain caused him to choke on his beer and he spat it out. Yoch. The hell, he said to her. Dash dash dash. At the front gates of Konoha, the two Anbu, now ignored to guard it since the incident, stood at attention until they saw two figures dashing through the trees towards them, and they drew their katanas from their backs and readied themselves. Yugito and the Raikage landed on the ground as some of the cage's blood landed in front of him. The Raikage. One of the Anbu said, why are you here? He asked, readying his blade. You may be bleeding, but for all we know it's a trick, the other Anbu said. You're a good ninja, the Raikage said. I was hoping you wouldn't be stupid, even though I do seek the aid of Konoha prior to the peace treaty agreement. He has a point, one Anbu said. Okay. You can go in, but we're going with you, the other said. Fair enough, the Raikage said. You'd better lower your weapons from the Raikage, Yugito growled. It's okay Yugito, the Raikage said. Dash dash dash. Soon the Anbu led them to the central building and up to Tsunade's office, where they knocked on the door. Come in, she said, and they walked through the door. Raikage-sama. Yes, hello, but we don't have time for formalities. I can tell by the tightened security of your village you've encountered this blood angel as well, he said. Yes. Sit down. Let me heal that wound. You're getting blood all over the place, Tsunade said, getting up and walking around the desk as he sat on the couch on the side of the room. Well, I'll just get to telling you the first and foremost important thing, he said, pulling his mask down and taking his hood off. Tsunade stopped as she was about to reach her arms down to his wound when she saw his face. Her eyes widened in absolute shock and her jaw dropped. I am possible, why you died, she said. Dash dash dash. Naruto and Tenten clashed their katanas together. The only problem is Naruto's angel reaver sliced through her blade like it wasn't even there, and the severed metal flipped through the air and stuck into the ground. Tenten had a blank face. Naruto's head sank down into his shoulders. Oops. I'm sorry, he said. Maybe we should train with metal katanas from now on, Tenten said. Naruto immediately cancelled out the blade of energy. Fair enough. I had a feeling this might happen, Tazuna said, and they turned to him and he tossed them both a katana in their sheaths. Tenten caught hers and Naruto tried to grab it with his free left hand, his bad hand, and it slammed into his finger dead on. He began to fumble it. Ouch ouch ouch, crap 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 crap, he said, frantically juggling the weapon before gaining control. Tenten began to giggle. Careful now, she said, pulling her sword out of its sheath. The blade shined in the light of the sun, perfectly clean, not a scratch on it. Are these brand new? Yep, Tazuna said with a nod. They're well made, Tenten said as Naruto drew his out and looked at the shining blade. Tazuna turned around and started to go back inside. Just down, hack any limbs off. I'd be the one to pay for that. Then make you pay for it, he said. Well, here we go, Tenten said. Already, Naruto said, putting the sheath and angel reaver down. Tenten ran at him and they clashed their blades together and the ringing metal echoed out. Their blades met several times, and though not perfect, Tenten's motion was a lot less sloppier than Naruto's. He was barely managing to block her attacks, maybe attack once or twice every few strikes, but he was outmatched in this field still. After a powerful clash of metal, Naruto stumbled back and Tenten did as well but regained faster, and just as they were about to charge at each other, A swirling horizontal tornado-like burst of wind blasted between them and they skidded to stop and turned towards the house to see Tamari with her fan out and open. Sorry to disrupt your training, but I suggest a free-for-all, she grinned. Sure, Tenten said, just give me a little warning next time you're going to try and hit us with a tornado. Tamari chuckled. Sure, I guess it would help me, Naruto said, bring it on. Great, Tamari said. I've been bored lately, she said before jumping up and swiping her fan, blasting out a wave of wind at Tenten, who rolled out of the way. But Tamari then revealed hidden kunai in her other hand and threw them right where she was gonna land, but Tenten wasn't as weak as when they fought in the Chunin exams, and she quickly deflected them with her katana, but one scraped past her arm and cut the skin, drawing blood. Tamari then landed and turned to Naruto, who was charging at her, and swiped her fan at him, sending out a burst of wind which collided with him, but he disappeared in a cloud of smoke. HMPH. A clone should have known, she said. Just then Naruto jumped from one of the trees he was near and swiped down with the sword, and Tamari quickly folded her fan and blocked his sword as he landed, but then Tenten came in and kicked Tamari in the side, sending her stumbling away. Naruto instantly swiped at Tenten with the katana and she barely managed to block it, and the force he put into it sent he stumbling back. He then stuck the sword in the ground and formed a familiar hand sign. Kujibushin, he said, and 10 more Narutos appeared, all with swords, and he pulled his out. It helps me learn these kind of things quicker, try not to disperse them too quick. Tsunade sat down in the chair guests sit on when in a meeting with her. Her face showed true shock and bewilderment. The man that sat on the couch before her very eyes died 16 years ago. She knew it. What the hell is this? She asked, shaking her head. Calm down please, the Raikage said. Minato, Tsunade finally said. Namikaze. Minato. Tsunade shook her head continuously. You're really Minato? She asked, obviously shocked out of her simple human brain. Yes. He nodded slowly. Tsunade stood up from her chair and Yugito looked up at her to notice her eyes shadowed over by her hair. She then noticed Tsunade clench her fists tightly. The blonde Hokage walked up to Minato, grabbed him by the collar while pulling off the couch and to his feet before slamming a ferocious punch into his face, sending him to the ground and sliding to the wall. Where the hell have you been? How are you still alive? She said. Yugito shot to her feet. Bitch. He's still injured. She growled before getting ready to attack her. Yamato, 1. Yugito, Minato said, sitting up from the ground. What? Why? That could be counted as a declaration of war. She said. Next thing she knew, Tsunade backhanded her across the face, sending her back down to the couch. This has nothing to do with you, girl, Suan said coldly. Yugito rubbed her cheek as a trickle of blood fell from her lips. She was pissed, but she also felt she didn't want to anger this woman any more than she already is. Tsunade walked over to Minato and pulled him by the collar to his feet. You better start explaining. How the hell could you leave Naruto without a father? She yelled. Yugito's eyes widened. Wait a minute, are to married or something? She asked. Tsunade turned a dark death-filled glare to the kunoichi, which was enough to shut this Jinchuriki the hell up and sink her deeper into her seat. Tsunade turned back to Minato. Well, talk, she growled. She was beyond serious and terrifying at this point, just the way Minato remembered his sensei's teammate to be, well, at least when she caught the two of them peeping. I can tell you out your arms are gonna exhausted long before I'm done, he said. Tsunade scoffed and let him go. He then sat down on the couch and she knelt down to heal his wound. I'm waiting, she said. Despite what you may think, this didn't all start with the Kyuubi attack. Minato said. Then where? She asked. Back when I was much younger and learning the countless aspects of my Shintengen. I met Shinigami. And, Tsunade urged. After encountering him, I made a pact with him. Out of my own stupidity and cowardice I sealed the pact. The powers I was granted were Shinigami as a battle aid, another ability was a second life after death. Why did you do that? It was before I met Kushina and fell in love with her. Now I regret the pact's price, a price I never thought would actually affect me, until I met Kushina, he said. What's the price? Tsunade asked. I know pacts all come with prices. The price for my second life was I had to abandon my old life, or my second would fade. Baka, if you really love Naruto, you would try to live the second life with him. even if it meant disappearing in the end, Tsunade said. There's also a reason I couldn't do that. Minato shook his head. What? After making the pact and before meeting Kushina, I decided to alter my pact with Shinigami. I wanted him to protect my children. He agreed, but being the genius he is, he set the price for that at me dying and going to the second life, to live that out completely, so to protect Naruto. I gave up my life for this new one willingly, if I want Shinigami to protect Naruto. I need to live a separate life, he explained. But my own blindness. I chose to have him protect my children, but I never even thought of my wife when altering the pact. I didn't expect her to be in any danger because I'd only fall in love with a kunoichi. I guess I figured she could handle herself. But, nothing can against Kyuubi, she died in the attack. The hospital was collapsing just after Naruto was born and Kushina told me to take him somewhere safe, she was too exhausted from giving birth to move. Flashback. Minato ran into the hospital room as the building shook and began to crumble and burn from the fierce attack of the Kyuubi outside, Kushina. He yelled, getting up to his wife's bed. 2 other doctors were there after just delivering a newborn Naruto, which Kushina, a beautiful yet exhausted woman with long brown hair, held in her arms. Minato. Get Naruto out of here now. She said frantically. What about you? Minato asked, talking Naruto from Kushina as she handed him to his father. I'm too tired and in too much pain to run, she said. Don't worry, Lord Hokage. We'll get her out of here, one of the doctors said. Just get Naruto out of here, Minato, Kushina said, waving him towards the door. All right, he said before leaning over and kissing her on the lips. I love you, he said. Love you too, she replied before he dashed out of the room carrying Naruto. In seconds he was out of the hospital and running through the streets. He looked up as he saw Kyuubi thrashing his mighty tails about, ripping, tearing and shaking up the land in the process as he released a demonic ferocious roar towards the heavens as a huge M of fire gathered and grew in his mouth, which he then released in a random direction, blowing several buildings up and starting a MIV fire. He then gathered another M of fire in his mouth and released in another random direction. Minato gasped as he saw the fireball whiz of his head and crash directly into the hospital building behind him, blowing it into a fiery rubble as the heat wave hit his skin. He stared terrified at the burning debris as his lips quivered. No. 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 He yelled furiously. Minato laid Naruto into a basket and dashed toward Kyuubi, where just on the outskirt of his range he paced Naruto down before biting his thumb. You goddamn demon, I'll kill you. He roared, planting his hand on the ground. Summoning, he yelled, and in a MIV cloud of white smoke he stood atop the head of Gamabunta, the head toad. End flashback. You know the rest from there. Minato said as tears fell down his cheeks. Tsunade finished healing his wound. You're cursed, aren't you? She asked. Yes. Shinigami even warned me I'd be cursed if I entered the pact. I was too stupid and naive to realize he was serious, Minato said. Tsunade turned to Yugito. And who are you? She asked. Ni Yugito, a kunoichi no Kumogakur, Junin level. She then looked at Minato as Shish trailed off. He nodded to her, and the Jinchuriki no Nibi. Tsunade turned a death glare to Minato, who began to wave his arms frantically. It wasn't me, it was before I was even Raikage, or even before Kyuubi's attack, he said. He's telling the truth. I had Nekomata no Nibi in me since I was a newborn, she said, and I'm 22 now. You could sympathize with his son, Tsunade said, pointing to Minato. Oh, and not to mention Gaara of the Red Sand, who had Shukaku in him until Akatsuki ripped it from him, and he's also the youngest Kage in history. I've heard of him before, Yugito said. I had a peace meeting with him 4 months ago, not a week before he apparently got captured by Akatsuki, Minato said, shaking his head. I hear Leaf Ninja helped retrieve him, and a certain female puppet master sacrificed her life to revive him. Do you want to know who was in the Leaf Ninja team? Tsunade asked. Who? Naruto and his team. He was Kakashi's student and now they're a full-on team, she explained. Really? Minato snapped. Please tell my boy's doing okay. He said. He's doing extremely well. He has 2 things going for him right now. He has 4 guaranteed wives, and 1 more probable wife, for his bloodlines, and I'm also pushing to get him as the next Hokage, Tsunade said. Yahoo! My boy's a ladies' man. Hold on, seriously. You want him to be your successor? He asked. I want him to be, yes. That boy's done more for the people of this village and others than anyone else I know, Tsunade said. He's even taught me a thing or two, she said, smiling and closing her eyes. That's my son. Minato cheered with glee. Raikage Minato-san. I can understand one's enjoyment at the moment, but we have dire matters to discuss, Yugito said. Right. Obviously you've encountered this blood angel too, right? He started. I thought he was only a myth. Choo. Daemon sneezed as him and the harpies flew over their small army of Kumo shinobi, moving closing toward the now visible Iwagakure. Gesundheit. Kumoyomi said. You okay? Tsuruyomi asked. Yeah. Just a sneeze, Daemon replied. Well Daemon, as you can see we're really close. Tsuruyomi said. And just before we start that raid, we've been meaning to ask you something. Kumoyomi asked. What would that be? He asked. Nothing of major importance, just a thing of curiosity. Your name, it sounds foreign. Mahehehe, I was wondering when you were gonna ask that. Now I wouldn't call it foreign, it's actually one of the first languages. The tongue of your ancestors, it's an ancient language, ancient for even 1,000 years ago. My human mother was an archaeologist, who studied the language, and seeing how she was raped and still kept me her child, she derived my name from the phrase, Di Jin Moan, which translates literally into, from the darkness, so she altered that and came up with Daemon. Its meaning is the only reason I didn't change my name after killing her and my blood angel powers awoke, he said as he twiddled with the coin around his neck. We're almost there, Lord Daemon. You want us to begin the charge? Narunia called from the ground as he walked in front of the shinobi. Yes, let's begin, Daemon said. About damn time, Narunia said before he changed into his demon form. Ready. Charge, he yelled and the shinobi all dashed towards Iwa. Daemon turned to Tsuruyomi and Kumoyomi. Well, Gren Galbarath Alagor en Orin? He asked in a battle-ready tone. What? The females ed their heads to the side. Hehehehe. Knew I'd get you with that one. It translates to, are you ready to build an empire? He yelled. Hell yeah, they said, and they then flapped their wings and blasted towards Iwa. Daemon began to chuckle to himself as his flying fortress rose up from the horizon behind him. Naruto dropped to his butt and began panting before he fell to his back. Damn. I'm exhausted. Tenten was on one knee with her katana stabbed in the ground for stabilization. Temari was still on her feet, but she had her fan closed and was using to stay upright. She was panting horribly. What? Tired already? She panted. Don't act tough. You're just as drained as we are. Tenten said. Temari looked herself over. Wow, I'm a mess. I need to go clean up and change unless you two want to keep going. She asked. No, Naruto answered quickly. I'm good, Tenten said. Good, Temari said before pulling her fan up and resting it on her shoulder. She struggled greatly, she then turned around and walked inside. Time for a bath. That sounds nice to me, too. Naruto said. We can go to our hot spring, Tenten suggested with a blush as she looked away. Naruto sat up. That's a good idea, he said, standing up. Tenten rose to her feet and walked over to the sheath of the katana Tazuna let her use and slid the sword back into it. Naruto did the same. They leaned the weapons against the wall of the house and they began walking to the hidden hot spring, but not before Tenten s her arms around Naruto's left arm. Shortly they found themselves coming up to the small cliff Lackey Hill, that the spring was under, the one Naruto happened to cannonball from, into the water. They looked over the ledge at the hot steamy water below. Damn, that looks relaxing, Naruto said. Yeah it does, Tenten might as well have been drooling over the idea of getting in it. Come on, Naruto said as he tugged her down the ledge of the cliff until they were at the edge of the hot water. Tenten dipped her finger into the water. A bit hot for my taste, but that's okay, she said. Naruto did the same. Yeah, this is fine, he said before looking at her only to see her pulling her shirt off. He blushed and turned his head away. Tenten looked at him. Why, you don't have to look away, she blushed. You've already seen me here. I just didn't want to gawk like a pervert, he said, turning back to face her. I couldn't actually see your body when we first ran into each other here, the hot water covered it. Tenten smiled at his sweet respectful comment before removing her pink lace bra, and her pants after. I like the fact that you want to look at me. Tenten blushed before removing her which matched her bra. She then let her hair free from its buns and it fell down just below her shoulders. She then stepped slowly into the hot water and walked deep enough in to sink herself down to her shoulders. Are you gonna join me or sit out there? She asked. Naruto smiled. Sorry, he said before taking off his own clothes and stepping in. Naruto worked his way over to the cliff wall and rested his back against it. Tenten swam over and sat next to him, before she laid her head on his right shoulder. I could relax like this every day, she said closing her eyes. Me too, Naruto said before wrapping his right arm around her shoulders. She took this as an invitation, and she scooted as close to him as possible, snuggling against his side. They stayed like that in a comfortable silence for a few minutes. Naruto, do you want me? Tenten asked. As your wife? Of course, Naruto said, if it's what you want. It is. I wonder when the grand marriage will be, she chuckled. I don't know. Hopefully not too long from now, he replied. I can't wait to make you all my wives and make you happy, then I can spend time with all of you more, Naruto said. Yeah, you won't have to separate your time to grow bonds with us anymore. I feel kind of selfish right now. Sakura, Ino, Hinata, Temari, they were here first and I've been hogging you for a few days now. I think that's why Temari really wanted to spar. It was time to spend with you, Tenten said. She too proud to ever admit it though, Naruto chuckled. She's the toughest of us girls though, and the most experienced, Tenten said. True, Naruto said. She's the oldest of us. Hey, Naruto-kun. Tenten lifted her head from his shoulder with a blush. You've made love to the others already, right? She asked. Why yeah, Naruto nodded. Why? Do you want to make love to me? She asked. Her face was totally red by now. What? Like right here right now? He asked raising an eyebrow. She nodded nervously. If you don't want to it's okay, she said. Do you want to? Naruto asked. Why yes, she replied. Your wish is my command, he winked before leaning into her neck and ing on it. Tenten gasped at the sudden sensation and instantly began running her fingers through his hair. Naruto-kun, she moaned. He trailed kiss to her shoulder and collarbone before grabbing her left and rubbing it in circles. Naruto went up and kissed her on the lips and she slid her tongue into his mouth to play with his. Naruto switched to her other and began rubbing it. Tenten felt a heat that wasn't the water they were in between her legs, and she tightened them together. Naruto, she moaned. Naruto positioned himself in front of her and began rubbing both her s before trailing kisses between them and lowering his head into the water. He reached her legs which she parted for him and he began licking her clit still rubbing her s. Tenten pushed her hips forward and into him a little as she gasped and moaned, throwing her head back. Naruto began to on her clit methodically as he flooded her with his tongue. He let go of her right and began rubbing her as he lifted his head out of the water and took a breath before going back under. He began to lick the insides of her heated. Damn, you're good at these. Tenten moaned. I'm already coming. Naruto dove his tongue in her as deep as possible and seconds later Tenten arched her back and an orgasm rippled through her body. Naruto pulled his head back out of the water. You come? He asked. Yes. I've never came that quick before, she panted. I guess I'm doing something right, Naruto chuckled. Tenten stood up from the water and pressed her back against the cliff wall. Do you want to go in? She asked as she parted her dripping wet from cum and water. Naruto stood up and kissed her pianely before sliding his erect manhood into her slowly. You're not a virgin? He asked. Sakura and Ino convinced me to do things with them. Tenten blushed. Well, good, at least you won't feel pain, he said before he lifted her legs out of the water and she wrapped them around his waist. Ash slid himself in as deep as possible. Both of them let out soft moans before Naruto began to pump his hips. His manhood was gripped tightly by her unexperienced, Naruto. Tenten moaned deeply as she began to roll her hips. Faster, she pleaded. Naruto did as she asked and began to go faster and harder into her. Tenten planted a strong kiss to his lips as she held his head and ran her fingers through his hair. Soon they found a perfect pace for each other and they were moaning loudly. Naruto pulled out of her and led her onto her legs again before turning he around and bending her over slightly. He then slid it back into her and continued to pump as she ratcheted her nails against the rock from pleasure, he bouncing forward with each pump. I'm coming again, Tenten cried out. I'm about to too, he said, and he got even faster and harder to where Tenten might as well have been screaming in bliss before she came around his manhood and he released inside of her as he came. They dropped to their knees in the water and Naruto moved back to her side as she turned round. Thanks Naruto-kun, she said. You're welcome. I'll show you more another time, he winked and she blushed. Deal. Tenten was bent over the edge of the hot springs water and over the solid ground and Naruto slid his still erect manhood in from behind. Ah, she moaned as he began to pump in and out. Naruto, you don't have to keep going, Tenten said through deep moans. I know, but do you want me to stop? He asked, getting faster. No, she said, just before she felt him reach around and begin to rub her clit up and down with his middle finger. Tenten's face turned a deep shade of erotic red as he continued driving in and out of her, so hard he was causing small waves in the hot spring water. Tenten pushed him back with her arms and turned around to sit on the edge of the ground with her legs in the water still. Naruto spread her legs and went back in, causing Tenten to moan hard as she wrapped her arms tightly around his neck and she kissed him. The blonde braced himself with his hands on the ground just to the side of her hips. He was sending huge waves of sensations of all kinds through her body. Faster. Harder, Moto. Tenten pleaded. Naruto didn't want to disappoint her, so he began to pick up the pace. Soon her was so hot each time he pulled back, some of her excess cum dripped of his manhood to the ground or into the water. She tightened her legs around him and closed her eyes tightly. It was so good she was seeing stars. Her moans got progressively louder as he went on, obviously growing closer to an orgasm. Naruto broke the kiss and began to lick and nibble her neck, bring one of his hands up to rub her left. I'm so close, Tenten said, and soon she threw her head back and nearly screamed, but she controlled herself enough not to. She fell onto her back and panted, her face still red. Naruto pulled out of her. Damn, you liked that one, didn't you? He chuckled. Yes, she said with a smile and a face that showed she was beyond satisfied. You want more? He asked. More. Tenten lifted her head and looked at him with a raised eyebrow. Yeah, we don't have to. If you want to keep going I will, Naruto said. He has the same leftover stamina as a turtle after a race. She thought to herself. He can still keep going. What a man. He'd keep going until I couldn't at all anymore. Like to see some chick say her guy could do that. Yes, no way am I gonna stop until I can't even move. Tenten said before sitting up and switching sides with Naruto and pushing him to sit on the ground with his legs in the water, while she knelt down and slid his manhood into her mouth before bobbing up and down. There's no way I can satisfy him like he did me, but I can try. Ah, Naruto moaned softly, felling her soft warm mouth around himself. Tenten licked up the entire length several times before sliding it back into her mouth and bobbing up and down, getting faster with time. Tenten began to center her Tonu's attention on his top most sensitive of places, and after ing her as hard as he did not 5 minutes ago, he came, and releasing some in her mouth which she drank down. Though doing that isn't what I intended by, keep going, I was talking about you. Naruto said before once again switching places with he back to her sitting. Naruto sat next to her and pushed her gently to her back before he ran his hand over her a few times, before sliding his middle and ring fingers in and arching them up. Tamari really like this, you should too, he said before he began to finger her up and down fast and seemingly rough. Tenten began to moan and she curled her legs in, still keeping them spread. She even dug her fingernails into the dirt and arched her back as he kept going. He stopped, pulled out and rubbed her up and down a few times before sliding them back and getting back to full pace. Oh my god, Kimochi, Kimochi. One, Tenten said though loud moans. He began to massage her lower abdomen just above her. He also did this as a brace, knowing what could be the outcome. Lol, I made a funny. Within seconds he pulled out and her released a squirt of cum out that went into the water and she began to convulse and shake with the repetitive orgasms running through her over and over. Once her body finished T's romp, she lay there panting with half-closed eyes. I'm done now. I can't move. Too numb, she said. Naruto chuckled. Okay. Dash dash dash. After about 10 minutes, Tenten finally got up and they got dressed before they decided to head home, hand in hand. Shortly after he began walking, Naruto heard a faint ringing in his head and a headache grew from that in seconds. He shook it off as he just ed Tenten a little too hard. As they continued, it was like each step he took his head began to hurt more and more, and now he was having trouble seeing, things began to blur in and out. His eyes felt like they were a heart pumping, not necessarily hurting but they felt like they were pulsing. His head began to throb. Tenten looked over to him. Are you okay, babe? She asked. Yeah, just a headache. Hey, go on ahead, I think I'm forgot something at the sping, Naruto said. Well, okay, if you say so. See ya back at the house, she said before kissing him and turning to walk away. Once she was far enough away, Naruto planted his hand on a tree for balance. Erg, my head, he grunted, holding his head with his other hand. Kit, Kyuubi said in a strained voice, this is no normal headache, it's affecting me too, what's going on? I don't, know, Naruto said. Just then he felt his chakra pulse though his body once out of its own will. What he couldn't see of this effect is that from his right eye blue energy rippled through his veins glowing through his skin as it all went straight into his right arm. He felt the weirdest pain ever at this time. His arm was numb yet he felt a burning, and a soreness in his tendons and bones. What's going on, Kyuubi? This isn't the effect of your chakra, is it? Naruto grunted, dropping to his knees, just before another pulse of blue light traveled through his veins from his right eye and at his right arms all the way down to his fingers again. No, my chakra doesn't affect me in negative ways like this, the demon fox replied. Naruto hissed with pain and bent over, laying his forehead on the ground. Erg, he grunted. Why did you have the broad to leave? We may need her help. Naruto was into much pain to reprimand Kyuubi for saying broad. He scratched his fingers across the grunt and dug up a clump of dirt as a reaction to the pain. And just as quick as it came on, it just vanished. Naruto lifted her head, realizing he felt totally okay all of a sudden. What the hell? How are we just okie dokie out of nowhere? Kyuubi growled, feeling fine himself. That was the weirdest thing ever. Let's hope it doesn't happen again. Naruto said, standing up when all of a sudden his Shintengen activated by itself once again. Dan it. He stopped himself when he realized that now with the Shintengen he could see a portal-like of light coming from the tree he leaned on. He looked around and walked up to it. No, Kit. Don't go into the light. I doubt it's the light of death you're thinking of. With the Shintengen I can see it, so then maybe I can go through it. He reached out for it. You idiot. You have no idea what's on the other side of that thing. Sorry, Foxo, but it's like the Shintengen is pulling me towards it, Naruto said, pushing his hand in the light. He felt no pain, so he proceeded to walk through the portal. Inside the depths of Naruto's mind, Kyuubi hit the deck and covered the top of his head with his hands, claws, and then his 9 tails. This kid's insane or stupid. Naruto walked straight yet came out of the same portal walking away. He looked around. The hell? He said, it didn't take me anywhere. Kid, there's something not right about this place. I don't know, but it's not where we just were. But it looks exactly the same. Naruto said. The Kyuubi is correct. Naruto heard an echoing female's voice. He whipped his head around. Show yourself. Is this a genjutsu? He yelled. A white spirit appeared in front of him. It was a beautiful woman with long hair. Her being all white, he couldn't tell what color it was when she was alive. What's going on? Naruto asked her. You inherited the Shintengen, she asked. I guess it's true. That's the only way mortals can enter this realm. Who are you and where are we if this is a different realm? Naruto asked. This is the celestial plane, the realm all spirits seek. The woman said, holding her hand out to the surroundings. This is the end of the road for wandering souls. The only spirits not allowed here are demonic and forsaken spirits. What about cursed spirits? Naruto asked. They can be good-willed and cursed at the same time, and they are allowed redemption, she said. I see. A bit unfair, but I see. Just then a falcon landed on his head. Well, the spirit of a falcon landed on his head. Naruto trailed his eyes up and looked at its green aura. Oh, hey there, little buddy, Naruto said, raising his hand towards it. How's it going? The falcon responded. Ah, pret. Naruto stopped and looked at the spirit of the woman, then back to the falcon. How'd you talk? He asked. I'm a spirit idiot, the falcon replied. If you have the Shintengen, you can communicate with spirits, animal or human. The falcon responded before he flapped his wings and flew over to the woman and landed on her forearm she held out. I wonder if he even realizes who he's looking at, the falcon said. No, I haven't told him, the woman said. Huh, the falcon? Naruto asked. No, my boy, me, she said. Who are you, if it's not too much to ask? He asked. Not at all, but you might want to make sure you won't react weird, she said. He nodded. My name is Tsubasa. Namikaze Tsubasa, she said. Naruto's eyes widened. Wait, what? Who? He asked, shaking his head. Namikaze Tsubasa. My father is the one who developed the Shintengen. Though I wasn't born with it, I learned from the scroll he left behind. Using it found this realm, and decided to stay here and watch over it, but being here for so long I lost my physical form. You're my grandmother? He asked, confused. I would believe so. What's your name? She asked. Naruto. He replied. Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. I see. Tsubasa said. HHIIIIIYAAAAAAA. Naruto heard and he turned his head to the right to see another animal spirit which happened to be a rabbit, in mid-air diving at him with a kick, and the rabbit went straight through Naruto's head as any ghost would. Wah! The rabbit landed on its rear feet and got into the crane fighting style pose. It's an intruder, Tsubasa-sama, the rabbit said as he jumped in the air and flipped before diving at Naruto again. The falcon on Tsubasa's arm flew out and caught the rabbit by the scruff of its neck in his talons. Spirits can touch each other, stopping the rabbit's attack. Hey, let me go, Featherface. The rabbit squirmed. Okay, the falcon said, dropping the rabbit to his butt on the ground. Ouch. Dumb bird, the rabbit said. It's okay, my friends. He is not enemy. Look at his eyes, Tsubasa said. The rabbit lifted his gaze upward and looked into Naruto's confused eyes. Yep, though those are the eyes of an idiot, it's definitely the Shintengen, the rabbit said. Be more respectful, he's my great-great-great-great-grandson, Tsubasa said. But if you were here, how did you pee on the Namikaze bloodline? Naruto asked. I had a twin brother. He was better with the Shintengen than me. He trained with it more, Tsubasa said. He pet it on. Did you have to leave a loved one behind for this world? Tsubasa closed her eyes and shook her head. Sadly, I never found true love, she said, but smiled anyways. I'm sorry, he replied. It's okay. There wasn't a male out there that could catch my heart, she said. So why is you come here, my boy? She asked. Well, actually, I had no earlier intentions to come here. My Shintengen activated and I saw a portal, but I had the strangest headache right before that. Headache? That's a new one, Tsubasa said. Maybe you just need to drink more liquids. She suggested. Maybe, but this headache came on in seconds, lasted for a couple of excruciating minutes and then disappeared in seconds. Naruto said, scratching the back of his head. Not to mention I felt my chakra pulsate through my body without me choosing to. That's odd. I'll have to look into that, she said, rubbing her chin. So what's this celestial plane like? Naruto asked. It's great. Better than the physical realm, the rabbit said. And I can eat you as many times as I want without you dying, they heard a voice. The rabbit's ears dropped down and he sighed. Crap, he said just as a coyote blasted through the bush and tackled the poor animal, grasping it in his mouth before whipping side to side. Here we go again, the falcon said to himself, shaking his head. The coyote stopped whipping his head side to side and he grinned and chuckled. Hey, I love doing this, he said. Honestly, you canines are so unethical and impulsive. They heard a female-like voice and they turned to see a black panther spirit laying on a branch of a tree, waving her tail lazily as it patted the side of the branch. The coyote turned his eyes to her. Shut it, feline, he growled with the poor rabbit still in his mouth, which lifted his head and looked at the coyote. Can you let me go now? He asked. Right, the coyote said before opening his mouth and dropping the rabbit out of his mouth, who began to walk away on his hind legs as he brushed himself off, mumbling, Gotta cover me in coyote slobber again. It's third time today, now I got to go bathe again, he grumbled angrily, before looking up to the panther. Thanks, he said. No problem, sweetheart, the panther replied. The rabbit continued to walk and he looked forward in time to bump into the firmly planted leg of a tiger. "You're lucky we're spirits, rat," the tiger said in a female voice, before looking straight up at the panther. "And you call yourself a huntress when you save little rabbits?" "Hey, you better not hurt my little buddy," the panther said. "And if I do?" The tiger grinned. "You know damn well," the panther replied. The rabbit jumped back and got into another martial arts fighting stance. "Don't think I'll go down without a fight. Why is it you five have to fight like this?" Tsubasa chuckled as she dropped her head into her hand. "You're all my fiend, can't you get along? If this guy would stop eating me," the rabbit said, pointing and angrily shaking paw at the coyote, who grinned. "And ma'am, if I may, I didn't dispute with these ones," the falcon said. "What, do you consider yourself better than us just because Tsubasa-sama lets you sit on her shoulder or arm?" "HHHMMM. The rabbit asked. "Well, guess what?" he said before jumping up and landing on her chest. "I can nuzzle myself between her warm s," he said before dropping to his back, sinking slightly between her rather large bust. The rabbit then looked up at the falcon. "What now?" he asked. Tsubasa began to laugh and she pulled the rabbit out of her s and held him in her arms. "You're so cute," she said. "I'm not cute," the rabbit huffed. "I'm masculine and foreboding." "Oh, I know a way for you guys to get along," Tsubasa said. "Naruto, would you take them back to the realm of the living with you? There they can't be so lax about fighting each other." "But why and how?" he asked. "Simple. The Shintengan can bring spirits to the physical plane." "Oh right, I read that in the scroll," Naruto said, "but 5 animals is a bit much. Please, could you do it for me? These guys need to learn how to get along. I can set it to where they have to listen to you. They can even protect you or your loved ones," Tsubasa said. Naruto rubbed his chin. "Protect my loved ones, huh?" The rabbit. "Protect a far superior human," the coyote said sarcastically. "Spirit beasts have abilities normal beasts don't," Tsubasa said. "They gain power from the humans that they're close to." "HHHMM. Tempting," the tiger said. "Agreed. I'll do it," the Black Panther said. Naruto looked around after getting an idea and counted the animals to make sure he knew how many there were. "Actually, this works. There's 5 of you, and there's 5 particular people I'd like to always be safe," he said. "I guess I can do it," the coyote said. "I'll go. I kind of miss being solid," the rabbit said. "Okay, I'll go. It might be fun," the falcon said. "Why not?" the tiger added. "Good. Now what do you say, Naruto?" she asked. "Okay." He nodded. "Well, before anyone sees you here who shouldn't, you should get going," Tsubasa said. "Why is it wrong for the living to see the dead?" Naruto asked. "No, but being in this realm leaves your soul open to unpredictable outcomes. It's why I lost my physical form. I'll be back from my realm in a while," Naruto said. "See ya later," he said, and he turned to the portal as the animals all walked or flew for the falcon's case, through the portal. "You may be rushing me out, but I'll be back, Obaa-sama," Naruto said before walking out of the portal. "Yes, peace and quiet," Tsubasa cheered. Naruto walked out of the portal and saw the animals there waiting for him. "Didn't I need to do something to make you guys physical?" he said. "Well, our spirits fed off the residual energy of your dujutsu," the falcon said. "Oh, okay. Well, let me set something straight. It's not me you're going to be listening to," he said. Hinata, Ino, Sakura, Tenten and Tamari were sitting at the dining room table eating lunch when the front door opened and Sakura looked around the corner to see Naruto walking in and her jaw dropped and she fell back in her chair at the sight. Tamari and the other girls hopped to their feet and looked around the corner to see Naruto and a pack of animals. "Who wants a present?" he grinned.